Do you ever grab a tub of ice cream, thinking it's the safest, simplest treat in the freezer, and then later you're staring at the label like, wait, why is this even called frozen dessert? Because in Australia, the freezer aisle is a mix of genuine ice cream, clever marketing, and the occasional product that gets pulled from shelves entirely. Today, we're counting down 8 ice cream brands sold in Australia that are worth avoiding, based on documented recalls, independent testing, and label reality. And then we'll finish with 4 better picks, plus the quick rules that help you spot the good stuff fast. Let's start at the bottom with number 8. Number 8. Woolworths. Cookies and cream ice cream sandwiches. Woolworths home brand. This one is a reminder that sometimes avoid has nothing to do with taste, and everything to do with basic safety. In July 2023, FSANZ listed a recall for Woolworths cookies and cream ice cream sandwiches after a foreign matter.
Risk, reported as metal, was identified.
When something like that happens in a frozen product, it's not just gross, it's a quality control red flag. Ice cream sandwiches are supposed to be simple. Wafer, ice cream, done. But the manufacturing process involves multiple steps and equipment points where things can go wrong. And recalls like this show you exactly where the weak links can be. And the frustrating part is, this is the kind of product people buy for kids' birthdays, quick desserts, and just chuck it in the trolley convenience. You're not standing there doing a deep investigation, you're trusting the shelf. The bottom line for you is simple. If a product line has been pulled for foreign matter, that's a hard, we're not taking chances moment. There are too many alternatives in the same price range to gamble on a brand line that has had that kind of incident on record. Now, moving up the list, the next one is a different kind of problem, because
the issue is what you don't see.
Number 7. Port Melbourne Paletas. Rocky Road Paleta Ice Cream. Port Melbourne Paletas. Here's a classic recall trigger, and it matters a lot in frozen desserts because people assume the cold makes everything safe. It doesn't. In July 2023, FSANZ listed a recall for Port Melbourne Paletas Rocky Road Paleta Ice Cream due to undeclared allergens, including milk and cashew. That's not a minor paperwork issue. Allergen labelling is one of the most basic safety promises a food brand makes, and when it fails, it can fail hard. What's tricky is that paletas and ice cream style products often look like the safer artisanal choice. They're marketed as fun, boutique, or premium. People trust them because they feel less industrial than the mega brands. But allergen mislabeling is exactly the kind of problem that can show up in smaller production runs or when ingredients change and labels do not keep up. For you,
the practical impact is this.
If you or anyone in your household manages allergies, you need brands with a strong track record for compliance, not a hope it's fine label. Even if you don't have allergies, undeclared ingredients still signal weak systems. Next up, we'll hit a brand that's treated like premium by default, but the record shows it still isn't immune. Number 6. Häagen-Dazs. Ice cream products recalled for undeclared allergens. General Mills. A lot of people treat Häagen-Dazs like the safe bet. Higher price, dense texture, classic flavours, the vibe of real ice cream. But even premium brands can get caught out, and this is why we don't rely on vibes. In July 2022, FSANZ listed a recall for certain Häagen-Dazs ice cream products due to undeclared cashew. Again, that's an allergen issue, and allergen issues are never small. Now, to be fair, recalls can also mean the system worked. A recall notice exists because it was
Identified and acted on.
But from a shopper perspective, it still tells you something important. Premium pricing is not a guarantee of perfect quality control. It's a guarantee that you're paying more. And here's the part that gets people. This brand also pops up in taste tests and gets praised for ingredients and richness. So shoppers assume best reviewed equals safest. those are two different categories. Safety is about controls. Quality is about formulation. You want both. If you're buying this brand, the smartest move is not blind loyalty. It's checking the specific product, checking the allergen statement, and watching recall updates. Because when a brand has had an undeclared allergen recall, you don't want to be the person finding out the hard way that your tub came from the wrong batch. Now let's move to number 5, because this one shows how you can get hit from two directions: recall history and taste reality. Number 5, Connoisseur, plant-based.
Hazelnut chocolate and gourmet ice cream tubs, Peter's ice cream.
Connoisseur is one of those brands Australians buy when they want to upgrade without going fully boutique. It sits in that premium supermarket lane. But there are two reasons we're putting it on the avoid list, depending on which product you're grabbing. First, there's the hard evidence. In February 2024, FSANZ listed a recall for Connoisseur plant-based hazelnut chocolate 1 litre due to undeclared milk. That's a serious issue, especially because plant-based shoppers are often buying specifically to avoid dairy, whether it's allergy, intolerance, or preference. If the label promise is plant-based, then undeclared milk is the exact opposite of what you're paying for. Second, there's the performance side. In an October 2025 Australian supermarket chocolate ice cream taste test published by The Guardian, Connoisseur gourmet ice cream Belgian chocolate scored 5 out of 12, and the write-up was not gentle. The tasters described a weird aftertaste and the kind of "this turns into a waste of your time" experience that people recognise instantly when they've paid premium money for a tub that tastes like cheap sweetness. So what does that mean for you? Connoisseur can still be fine in some flavours, and some people love it. But the record shows inconsistency, and that's exactly what you want to avoid in a treat category. You're not buying ice cream to feel disappointed and suspicious at the same time. Alright, quick pause. If you're finding this research valuable and you're still with us, drop a comment with the number 5 so we know you're here. And if this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. It really helps us continue creating well-researched, fact-checked content like this. Alright, let's get back to it. Number 4, Lick, Couverture Dark Chocolate Real.
Ice cream.
Lick ice cream. This is where the conversation gets interesting, because avoid is not always about cheap brands. Sometimes it's about a product trying so hard to be premium that it becomes unpleasant. In the same October 2025 Guardian taste test, Lick Couverture Dark Chocolate Real Ice Cream scored 3.5 out of 10, which is brutal for something that's clearly positioned as high-end. And the review explains why. This product leans hard into richness. The packaging even makes bold claims about cream content, and the result, according to tasters, was essentially an experience that felt greasy and heavy. That's not what most people want from a chocolate tub. You want creamy, sure, but you also want balance, clean chocolate flavour, and a finish that doesn't feel like you just ate frozen butter. The more important point is the value. This category is already expensive, and boutique supermarket tubs often cost enough that you only buy them when you
Really want it to be good.
A low score like this is basically a warning that you're paying premium money for a product that's polarizing at best and unpleasant at worst. For you, the move is simple. If you're tempted by real ice cream language, don't stop there. Look for independent tasting results. Check weight versus volume. And remember that ultra rich does not automatically mean high quality. Now, moving up, we're going to hit the brands that look like great value until you realise what you're actually buying. Number 3, Blue Ribbon, Classic Chocolate, Streets brand. Blue Ribbon is familiar. That's the problem and the advantage. People trust it because it's been around forever, it's everywhere, and it's often discounted. But when we're talking about which tubs to avoid, cheap and familiar can hide a lot. In the October 2025 Guardian Supermarket Chocolate Ice Cream Taste Test, Blue Ribbon Classic Chocolate is explicitly called out as a low performer, with tasters comparing its flavour to weird artificial notes. That kind of comment tends to show up when a product is built more around sugar, flavourings and aeration than dairy richness. And this is where a very practical trick matters. The Guardian piece makes a point that's worth stealing for your next shop. Price per litre can be misleading, because ice cream can be heavily aerated. The tub might be 1 litre, but if it's very light in weight, you're partly paying for air. That's not illegal, it's just how some products are formulated, but it changes the value equation fast. For you, if a brand is known for being light, fluffy, and fine, it often means you'll eat more to feel satisfied. And that defeats the purpose of buying a treat in the first place. This is the kind of tub that looks like savings and feels like regret. Next up, another brand that sounds fancy but lands flat. Number 2, Indulge, chocolate gourmet ice cream, supermarket line. This one is a great example of branding doing more work than the product. Gourmet, Indulge. You're expecting rich chocolate, good texture, and that little premium moment. But in the October 2025 Guardian Chocolate Ice Cream Taste Test, Indulge Chocolate Gourmet is called out with one of the most telling insults a food can receive: boring. The quote was along the lines of an ice cream for bureaucrats, which is hilarious, but also deeply specific. It means the flavour is safe, flat, and forgettable. And if you're going to spend calories and money on ice cream, forgettable is the worst outcome. What's even more annoying is that these premium-sounding supermarket lines often sit in the same price band as genuinely good tubs, especially when the better ones are on special. So you don't even win on value. For you, the best way to treat these labels is with suspicion. Gourmet is not a regulated promise, it's marketing. If the product cannot back it up with ingredients, weight, and independent performance, it's just a fancy word for, we hope you don't notice. And finally, we're at number 1. And this one is the perfect example of why brand names can distract you from the one number that actually matters. Number 1, Monarch, Silver Scoop Choc Chip, budget supermarket tub. This is the tub you buy when you need volume for a crowd, or you want something close enough to throw into cones, or you're feeding kids who don't care. And honestly, that's relatable. But this is also exactly why it lands at number 1 on the avoid list. In the October 2025 Guardian Taste Test, Monarch Silver Scoop Choc Chip is mentioned as a low-scoring price competitor, with tasters comparing the chocolate flavour to cheap confectionery, the kind you get in pre-packaged lolly bags. That's not a small complaint. In ice cream, cheap chocolate notes often come from low-grade cocoa flavouring, overly sweet formulation, and waxy inclusions that leave an aftertaste. And again, the hidden trap here is the value illusion. When the product is cheap per litre, you assume you've won. But if the texture is icy, the chips are waxy, and the flavour is thin, you have to add syrups, toppings, or extras to make it enjoyable. Now your cheap tub is not cheap anymore. It's just a base that needs repairs. If you want a budget-friendly tub that still delivers, you can do better than this. And that brings us to the good news, because there are brands doing this right, and you can buy them in the same supermarkets. Now that we've covered what to avoid based on recalls, independent testing, and value traps, let's talk about 4 better picks that are actually worth your freezer space. These aren't perfect, nothing is, but they're backed by stronger testing results, clearer value, and more consistent consumer satisfaction. Better pick 1. Bulla Creamy Classics Vanilla. If you want a reliable supermarket vanilla that tastes like proper ice cream, This is one of the safest recommendations we can make. In Choice's 2025 Premium Vanilla Ice Cream Taste Test, Buller Creamy Classics Vanilla was the top scorer, with an overall score in the low 80s. That matters because vanilla is the hardest flavour to fake. If a brand cuts corners, vanilla exposes it instantly. What to look for on the label is pretty simple here. You want dairy up top, cream and milk, and you want the product clearly labelled as ice cream, not frozen dessert. Practical buying tip. If you're serving a group, go Buller for vanilla and then add your own toppings. The base is strong enough that it doesn't need to be rescued. Better pick 2. Aldi, Dairy Fine Indulge Vanilla Bean. Aldi shoppers already know this feeling. Sometimes the house brand quietly outperforms the fancy ones. In Choice's 2025 testing, Dairy Fine Indulge Vanilla Bean was one of the top 4 premium vanilla picks. That's impressive because it's competing against brands that charge more on reputation alone. What makes it safer as a pick is the value consistency. You're not paying for the name, you're paying for the product. Label tip. Look for vanilla bean cues that come from real vanilla flavouring and a dairy-forward ingredient list, not just vanilla flavour. Practical tip. Aldi stock can be inconsistent by store, so if you find it and you like it, grab the extra tub now, not next week. Better pick 3. Sara Lee Rich Ultra Chocolate 1 litre tub. This one surprised people in the best way. In the October 2025 Guardian Chocolate Ice Cream Taste Test, Sara Lee Rich Ultra Chocolate scored 8 out of 10 and was described as genuinely delicious, nostalgic and satisfying, with a texture people actually wanted to eat. Why it's a better pick is not just flavour, it's also the finished product feeling. You don't need to fix it. You don't need syrup. You don't need to drown it in toppings to make it worth it. Practical tip. This is a great crowd tub. If you're hosting, this is the one that disappears first because it hits that easy, familiar chocolate profile without tasting thin. Better pick 4. Ben & Jerry's Chocolate Fudge Brownie. Yes, it's expensive. And yes, it's still one of the more dependable treat tubs if you're buying it as a once-in-a-while thing. In the October 2025 Guardian Taste Test, Ben & Jerry's Chocolate Fudge Brownie scored 7.5 out of 10, praised for being dense, intense, and packed with inclusions that actually taste like what they claim. Label tip. With tubs like this, what you're really paying for is mix-ins and density, not air. Practical tip. Because it's so rich, serve smaller portions. This is one of the few brands where a couple spoonfuls can actually feel like enough, which oddly makes it better value than a cheaper tub you have to eat half of to feel satisfied. Alright, now let's make sure you can spot the good stuff yourself, because a list helps once, but a method helps forever. Here's the How to Spot It guide, fast, practical, and built for the actual supermarket aisle. First, understand the language trap. Ice cream versus frozen dessert. In Australia, product naming and standards matter. FSANZ's Food Standards Code sets rules around food categories, and brands that are light on dairy often avoid calling themselves ice cream directly. So if the front says frozen dessert, frozen confection, or it's weirdly vague, treat it as a warning that the recipe may be built more around sugar, water, vegetable fats, and stabilizers than cream. Second, stop trusting price per litre. This is where people get played. Aeration changes everything. A 1 litre tub that weighs 500 grams is a different product to a 1 litre tub that weighs 900 grams. The Guardian Taste Test made this point for a reason, and it's one of the best quick checks you can do. Flip the tub, check the weight on the nutrition panel, and compare. You don't need a calculator. Just notice if it's unusually light. Light often means airy, and airy often means you'll feel less satisfied. Third, check the ingredient order. Ingredients are listed from most to least. If sugar is right up near the top and dairy is not leading, you're probably getting a product formulated for cost and shelf stability more than quality. And to be fair, stabilizers and emulsifiers are common in ice cream and not automatically bad. But there's a point where the product becomes more like sweetened frozen foam than ice cream. Fourth, watch the allergen statement, especially if you're buying plant-based, dairy-free, or free from. The Connoisseur recall is the perfect reminder that the biggest risk in this category can be mismatches between what the label implies and what the product actually contains. Always check for may contain statements, and if you're buying for allergies, stick to brands that publish clear allergen controls and have strong compliance records. Fifth, remember the real food safety point people forget. Ice cream is not sterile. FSANZ microbiological guidance notes that major hazards associated with ice cream include organisms like Listeria monocytogenes and Salmonella. And while they do not grow in frozen storage, they can survive. That doesn't mean you should panic. It means you should handle ice cream like a perishable product. Keep it cold. Avoid letting it melt and refreeze. Don't store it in the door, and don't keep half-melted tubs for weeks. Now for 2 easy at-home checks that actually help. 1. The melt test. Put 2 small scoops, 2 different brands, in separate bowls on the bench. Set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes. Real dairy-forward ice cream tends to melt into a creamy puddle. Heavily stabilized, aerated, or water-heavy products often collapse, weirdly separating, foaming, or turning icy at the edges. This is not a lab test, but it's a quick reality check that often matches what you taste. 2. The spoon resistance check. Open a fresh tub straight from the freezer and try to scoop. If it's rock hard like a brick, it could be very dense, or it could be a formulation issue. Give it 2 minutes, then scoop again. Good ice cream usually softens into a smooth, creamy scoop. Bad tubs go from brick to crumbly, icy shards, which is a texture problem you cannot unsee once you've noticed it. And finally, the biggest tip that saves the most money. Buy ice cream like you buy wine. Don't just buy a brand, buy a specific product line that has performed well in testing and reviews. Brands can make both great and terrible tubs under the same logo. So there you have it, 8 ice cream brands sold in Australia that are worth avoiding, based on documented recalls, independent testing, and value traps. And 4 better picks that are far more likely to give you what you actually want. These companies count on you grabbing the tub, trusting the label, and never checking the details. But now you've got the method: recall awareness, weight versus volume, ingredient order, and the quick checks that expose the worst offenders. What about you? Have you tried any of the tubs we listed today, and did you agree with the results? Or did we miss a brand you want us to dig into next? If you found this helpful, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this video with more people who want fact-checked consumer guides. Subscribe if you want more evidence-based breakdowns like this one. And drop a comment with what category we should investigate next. Stay informed, stay healthy, and trust the evidence.